Hey everyone, welcome back. So, got a new game that was sent in. This one was sent in by Mr. Look. He's rated about 1,000, and he is playing as the black pieces in this game. Alright, so let's go ahead and start taking a look at it. So, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. Okay, d4, and we're going to see the Scotch, another Scotch. Last video was also a Scotch. Alright. E takes, knight takes, and here we see the knight to f6 variation. And I did mention this in the last video as well, but two other possible variations here is bishop to c5, which is the variation I play when I would play e5, or e5 in response to e4. Now I don't play that so much anymore, but to understand chess openings, you really should play them from both sides, and it helps you to get a better understanding of chess in general. So I have played the Scotch a little bit from both sides, and when I played it, I liked the bishop to c5 version. And there's also the bishop to b4 version here, where you just kind of make a little bit of a question to white. Okay, so those are just two possible variations. Okay, but here we see the knight to f6 version. Okay, so knight takes, and here we see d takes on c. So typically you see the b pawn taking, and here's the reason why. So taking with the d pawn isn't as good, because then white can just capture the queen, and then slightly more comfortable endgame, because after something like queen takes, king takes, then we see that this king definitely already can't castle, and you might say, well, castling's not as important because less material, but there is still a considerable amount of strength left on the board, so castling can still be important sometimes, even in positions where there's not as much material and where queens have been exchanged. And in addition, here's something else that makes this position much more comfortable for white. And so if I saw the possibility to get to this as white, I would immediately take it. Because let's look at this pawn majority. So black's pawn majority is on the queen side, and white has a pawn majority on the king side. So what do we notice that's different? Well, for black, his majority has a doubled pawn. So the c pawn is doubled, which means that when he's trying to push these pawns to try to create a passed pawn later on, because usually that's what you use your majorities for, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to use these because they're doubled. Whereas for white to push the pawns, a little bit easier because this pawn majority is healthy, meaning that it's not doubled and will be easier to push. Okay, so with that being said, if I saw a possibility to go through this endgame, I'd immediately take it. Okay. Yeah, just like that. I'd take it in a snap. Okay. Okay. Bishop c5. Castling kingside. Castling knight c3. Knight g4. h3. And here bishop takes on f2. And okay, so white gives up the rook and pawn for a knight and bishop, and that's a little bit better for white. And here's why. So even though this king is temporarily weakened, he's only going to be weak for a little bit of time. He can always just run back, and then he'll be safe, and he's not like going to be weak for a long time. It's not like permanent weakness. He's not going to be exposed for very long, so there's not really a whole lot that can come of this. So king safety, not really an issue anyway with this. Okay. And now let's also think about this. So rook and pawn for bishop and knight is the same material value, right? So both equal 6 points, because 3 plus 3 is 6, and then 1 plus 5 is also 6. See, I'm good at math. I can count that 3 and 3 equals 1 and 5. Same thing. Okay. But the difference is that you get 2 pieces with the bishop and knight. And also, bishop and knight are going to be just as effective throughout pretty much the whole game. And it's only really in an end game, though, that rooks can be used because, they're kind of difficult to use when there's not so many open files. So it's going to take a little bit more work to get them into action, whereas the bishop and knight are already useful. So really, the rook is only going to be useful later on, whereas the bishop and knight are already useful, and are just as useful as the rook can only aim to be later on. So it's kind of like that. Anyways, queen f6, king g1, queen g6, okay, and so pinning with this threat, and then e5, and yeah, that just discovers this attack on this queen, and black, I guess, doesn't see that, but yeah, maybe. Yeah, but e5, other than discovering the attack, probably isn't as great because now this pawn is a little bit more difficult to defend, so maybe if black hadn't gone for that, maybe he can hit this pawn and win a second pawn for the bishop and knight rook pawn exchange, and then maybe he's doing pretty good, but because this pawn's going to be a little bit weak. But anyways, this is what happened to the game. Rook 8 d8. Bishop takes h7 because after king takes, you get this fork and then you get the minor piece. Yeah, and then this is just, yeah, that's the end. Here we go, so this is a quick checkmate. Alright, so in this game, so first of all, the bishop and knight for a rook, that's one thing to keep in mind, that bishop and knight I would usually take over the rook and pawn most of the time. In most cases, you're going to see more use from a bishop and knight. Okay. The other thing is, if you want to play the Scotch, you do need to learn some lines because there are a lot of tricky lines in the Scotch where you need to know some theory. And if you want to play this version, remember b takes is better. Okay. And also, one other thing I do encourage is check out the variation with bishop c5, because I just like I like this variation where you threaten checkmate in one and the knight. And yeah, so this is the way I play. Well, that either or the one version I had tried out with experimenting with this idea, where c3 and then the knight can't go there, or knight goes here and it walks into being pinned, and yeah. So those are some ideas. So check it out. Yeah, but I highly discourage taking with the d pawn because it does give white this possibility. Okay, so with that being said, that's what I have to say about this game. So, keep sending me your games, everyone. And until next time, thank you all for watching. Bye.